all sorts of people apply to do the training. You would need to have the backing of the head teacher, and it would be really useful to do some form of needs analysis to actually sort of see where you are compared to the standards. There are literacy and numeracy requirements. There are currently different routes to gain HLTA status. There's a 3-day preparation route, and that's really for experienced practitioners.
Welcome to day 3, and we're going to look at the PowerPoints first of all. So we're going to start off by just looking through the PowerPoints.
That is purely 3 days, and then you move on to do the assessment. For the less experienced members of support staff, there's modular routes, and these are being developed all the time with various different specialisms. But again, that's usually for somebody who needs a little bit more sort of experience and a bit more sort of knowledge and skills before they move on to do the assessment.
When candidates come to do preparation for HLTA, it's a national process, and so they are all entitled to the same information and the same sort of support. And indeed, they will have to attend a 3-day preparation course. On that course, they get an opportunity to be supported in interpreting what these 31 HLTA standards really mean. By that I mean, what does it mean for them individually in their own school context?
Look also at your guidance notes. Look carefully at the guide as you're reading something, and look for the words that we talked about on day 1, like a range of. Look for plurals. Words where there's required more than one behaviour management strategies. Look for that. Look for the key words. Remember, we underlined the key words in the standards on day 1.
During the preparation, we interpret the standards. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for me on a day-to-day basis in relation to my naturally occurring work? The next thing is that they get support in understanding how to approach the tasks themselves. Because as you know, this is an assessment process, and there are some tasks that the candidates have to do. We go on to explaining the assessment process itself in terms of the visit. Often they get quite nervous about that, but it's very helpful to reassure them, to help them to understand exactly what to expect, so that they can prepare themselves for this 3-hour visit when the assessor comes into school.
After making the initial decision that the 3-day assessment route was the right one for myself, we went to our first meeting, and I must say it was just so lovely to be with people who were in the same position as myself, but also a little bit daunting when I saw the standards. I can remember thinking to myself, oh goodness me, how does this fit into the work I do? But the more I read them, the more the assessor, the tutor helped us with fitting them into our daily lives and our daily work. I realised actually that most of what I did dovetailed so well into the standards that were in front of me. I found the 3 days very, very useful because you could discuss with colleagues and pick their brains. You could get support on putting together your finished work. I found them very, very useful.
I chose the 3-day assessment only route because I found that working in the job I do, I was meeting the standards, and I just needed help to be able to put my thoughts down on the paper to cover the standards.
The whole experience of preparing for my HLTA was a really positive experience. When we went on the course, it was nice to see lots of sort of friendly faces, and everybody was in the same position. Everybody was a little bit unsure of what they were doing, but there were some really sort of strong tutors there who guided us and made sure that we knew exactly what we needed to do.
The initial reaction is one of horror, really, when you see the criteria, because you don't really understand what they're asking for. It seems very wordy, and it's quite hard to pick out, you know, what they're looking for, what evidence they want from you. But going on the days where it's all explained to you, and to know that everybody else feels exactly the same way, builds your confidence up.
One of the best things about the 3-day assessment was the chance to work in small groups. During the day, the tutor would split us into groups, and we could talk and discuss, and they could be your critical friend really and help you pull your work together. And the discussions that we had were actually extremely useful, and probably one of the best things about the day.
It was nice as well to be able to share your experiences with the others, and Obviously everybody's got different sort of strengths and weaknesses, so you could share those ideas and pick pointers up as you went.
In many ways it just reaffirmed what I do on a daily basis and the knowledge I have as an early years practitioner. It just seemed to make sense.
For me it was good as well because I could share what I knew for people that were perhaps less experienced than I was, and for me that kind of reaffirmed what I did know, and it made me feel more confident in my own skills.
The training is quite different. In the East Midlands there are a number of different training providers. At the University of Northampton we happen to be one of those, and different training providers have produced their own training modules. But the general principles apply in terms of what's the difference between preparation and a training module. On the modular course, you get exactly the same preparation support that you would do if you just went for the 3-day preparation. So that is built into a modular course. So what do you get in addition to that? Well, you get separate modules which will help you to address batches or clusters of different standards. And candidates can choose which of these modules they take part in. Ideally, when they're thinking about going for HLTA, they will carefully go through each one of these standards and consider just how they do meet them perhaps at the moment. Now, it's really helpful if somebody back at the school is also doing that with them. Once they've done that sort of analysis, they can find out where their gaps are and then opt for a module that will help them to address those gaps.
I think the best thing about the HLTA modular course has been given the chance to turn up every week and then having that time to go away back into schools and apply what you've learnt. And being an experience, it's given me much more confidence to actually discuss with other TAs, go to the course each week and then go away and try and either apply it or look for the things that I should be doing in my standards.
I think the HLTA modular course was a better course for me to do. Because it goes into more depth with the standards, because it's broken down into different modules. You examine specific standards for each module and they're less daunting when you go back to school and you realise, well, in my everyday practice I can cover this standard maybe a couple of times a day.
What I find great about being on the course is that I can talk to other TAs about their experiences, and it helps me to understand the standards.
I'm identifying gaps in my knowledge, and then I'm going back to school and finding ways to be able to improve and work on the gaps.